Late stage propaganda is when they switch from trying to lie to us to trying to humiliate us.
We have a duty to ask, is this or is this not true? But instead of people asking that nowadays, I fear that many people instead ask, will others be okay with me thinking this is true? There was a great Anon post that I stumbled across talking about the concept of late stage propaganda, and the gist of it was this. Late stage propaganda isn't necessarily designed to lie to you. It's not designed to persuade or to convince you. Rather, the job of late stage propaganda is to get you to utter things and to say things and to affirm things that you know to be false. So consider this. Imagine, like the social media scene. I don't participate in social media at all, but, I've heard the stories and I've seen what's going on. If you dare speak things that you think to be true, but the zeitgeist or the collective hive mind hasn't associated or thinks to be false, good luck with that. Unless you have enough muscle to punch back or to push back or whatever, right? You're out. It's just disgusting.
Yeah, let's take this back to 2019. Go back 3 years. And what would you, Justin, would you believe me if I told you in just a matter of months and years, you will be forced into your house? You will be prevented from seeing your family. You will be fired from your job if you don't get a jab. Your families will resign you. They will throw you out into the dust because they forget everything that you've ever done for them just because the media tells you you are bad because you don't do something. Then, after all that, you just start hating all Russians. And you know what? We can't let these Russian kids play ice hockey. We can't let them go to soccer tournaments. You know why? Because Putin's bad. And all this stuff is just boiling up, making you hate everybody. You were going on to say the media portrays certain ways. In 2019 and the earlier, would they kick people off the internet if they said something that was against the consensus? No. This is really, except for the Alex Joneses, who are so far off into the conspiracy land that all of it has happened to have trickles of truth, surprisingly.
Yeah.
But if you say things that are just slightly against the narrative in a agnostic way, you will get canceled and booted off the internet.
Absolutely. The way is so right now we're prioritizing in the West feelings over facts. So be it. It is what it is. But I think part of the problem right now, from a very high level, is that we prioritize feelings over facts. We are so focused on the individual and so disinclined to focus on the individual. If you have seen some of our other videos, we enjoy talking about macro. And one of the questions we always like to ask in macro is what constrains various systems, the banking systems, the DTCC, if you follow GME, stock, whatever. But let's take this into the psychological realm. What actually constrains the individual's right to do whatever they want to do? So this is actually a really interesting question, because if you set it up so that no one has the right to actually interfere or try to constrain someone else, especially if that constraint would make them feel bad, then you are persona non grata. I can't think of a worse cardinal sin that we can commit, at least right now in the West. That will get your ass canceled off social media like insane. Here's an example of what I mean. There was a big brouhaha, what was it now, 2 weeks ago or whatever, right, about a swimmer who was competing, and just due to the social situation around it, many people would argue that, hey, listen, just looking at the facts for what they are, this isn't fair, right? You have a biological male competing against biological females. But if you were to state the truth, and see, this is the late stage propaganda, everyone knows this to be true, but if it is perceived that, wait a minute, if you call someone a biological male, and then you also say, well, as a biological male, nature has gifted you, or whatever, right? With certain things that are unique to males. Just like if you're a biological female, nature has gifted you with things that are unique to a female. The point is that by actually saying, hey, listen, you're a biological male, and I mean, granted, think of yourself however you want, but if we have society, if we basically say we are not going to even acknowledge this fact because we are worried that it might constrain you, it might hurt your feelings, it might, whatever, right? You get almost like this descent into madness where you have policies that are made that contort to a false reality.
When we dig down, why is this so important? Because everybody knows this to be true. The only reason why you object it is because it makes you feel good. You are overlaying all evidence of fact. I'm sorry, but men are different from women. And that is some people, men and women, are objectively different. And we have to accept that as a fact. As little as you like it, if it hurts your feelings, so be it. What happens when much more when Justin was a child than I, but our teachers would say that sticks and stones may break your bones, but words will never hurt you. You are not supposed to get offended by words because they're just words. And if you are content with yourself, what somebody else says should not have any effect on you.
Yeah, but see, I think this is the problem here, and this gets back into, I think, the power of late stage, late stage propaganda, right? If you can get society to accept it as virtuous, that there should be nothing to constrain the individual. And when I say constrain the individual, what I mean is constrain the individual's perception of him or herself. So when I say this, I mean the constraint of the mind, okay? Constraint of the mind. If you inject thoughts that are not grounded in reality, or you inject thoughts and the way they manifest are directly not grounded in reality, I'm not saying you can't do it, nor am I saying one should be precluded from doing so. Like, no, I mean, think whatever thoughts you want or whatever, right? But to quote Rickards here, there's a great line where he likes to trot us like, look, you're free to ignore reality, but you are not free to ignore the consequences of ignoring reality. And this gets back into this thing where I see late stage propaganda as just one more way to facilitate, this unlimited expansion of, let's say, the mental balance sheet of delusion. That's the frame I put on it. And again, I will just simply write out, not to make this too economical or whatever, but you see the same thing happening, in the banking system. You see the same thing happening in equities. Just pick anything, bam. It's the same nonsense story. You have lies, or excuse me, you have non-truths that are being passed off as truths. Or if you want me to even soften that, you have things that might not be accurate that are accepted with a much higher degree of accuracy and a much higher degree of truth than they might otherwise have. And what's more, if you dare ask a question, if you dare try to audit, if you dare try to say, hey, wait a minute, help me understand this, whatever, right? The consensus monster comes through and gets you. Josh, you mentioned being called a conspiracy theorist. A conspiracy theorist is the go-to insult for complacency theorists when they're actually presented with thoughts they don't want to think. At least that's my humble opinion. But granted, I've been called a conspiracy theorist for quite a long time now. So no bitterness, no bitterness.
It is funny that most of these things that often come out as the truth later on in life.
And the thing is, just one more thing too, like, and here's the sad part about the truth. Like, for all you guys watching, do you know the oldies will probably remember this. So I was born in the mid 80s, and there was an animated version of The Hobbit made by Rankin Bass. And there's a scene it's only 60 minutes long, great little video, but there's a scene at the very end where Bilbo is talking to Thorin, and Thorin's on his deathbed. And basically Thorin says, like, did it take this to make us see one another? The point is that, Thorin one of the characters made a mistake, and ultimately the mistake cost him his life. But only after he was dying did he basically figure out, oh, wait a minute, Bilbo was right. And so, one of my other favorite quips too, and Josh, you like this one, is the owl of Minerva only flies at dusk. Thank you, Professor Baloo. That's a great line, by the way. And so it's the same thing. And like, this is, I think, part of the tragedy of the situation, because it's like, if we have to wait for the failure to occur, we're like, we can't undo the damage, or like, it's much harder to undo the damage. If you have to wait till you're being rolled into the hospital for like your quadruple bypass from a lifetime of cigars, Big Macs, and I don't know, Iberico Jamon or whatever, right? Well, it's a little too late to do anything. Like the goal to have changed your life, or the point is you wanted to have changed your lifestyle, like 10, 20 years ago. But again, only at the very end, when you're actually like facing death or staring over the precipice, do you find the will to change? Well, it's a little too late. So that's the tragedy of the situation. It pissed them off again, right? Only when these people are lined up with a gun pointed to their head will they understand.
Yeah.
Sorry for the rant there, Josh. Josh, your thoughts.
This is essentially where we go from the subtle propaganda. Back in the day, even just 5-6 years ago, there would be subtle lies in the media that you could distrust, but you thought that they at least were telling mostly the truth. Now it is almost everything they say is the complete opposite of the truth, and they are trying to make it as outlandish as possible. So for the people that do believe it, they are wildly humiliating their intelligence.
Yeah.
And if we go back to these times just 5 years ago, even now, these people that believe in some of this hypocrisy and hysteria, they're very smart people. Very, very, very smart people. Nobody would deny that. This comes down to Hundisverse, theory of stupidity that I'm talking about again, because he said that stupid people are more evil than evil people, because The evil people at least know what they are doing. The stupid people don't understand that what they are doing is even wrong. So how can you change the opinion of somebody who thinks that they are doing something that is objectively right, and they are told that they are doing something objectively right every single day?
Or think about it like this. I suspect the people in charge, and the people who are in charge of the people who are in charge, I think these people have the strongest of motivations to make sure that the sheep never wake up. And so that means that, like, if you can consistently get people to say a lie, it's like doing an exercise with bad form over and over and over again at the gym. Breaks down, grinds down the resistance of this. Oh, and by the way, if you want to see this in yourself, next time you think about posting something on social media, especially if it's something controversial, ask yourself if you think this thought. Is what I'm posting, or if I speak truth on something that I believe on social media, is it because I think it's true, or am I typing something that I think is not quite as true as I think it otherwise could be, because I'm more worried about what will other people think of me if I think this thought, or if I don't think this thought? That's a very good litmus test.
Basically what he's saying is, before you post something, is your first concern, what will other people think of my post? Or are you just posting what your thoughts are? And that will really drive down the late stage propaganda when you are scared to speak your truth.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, if you think that you would never do such a thing and this is utter bullshit, look in the mirror and you'll see an excellent example of an NPC. But let's not go there. So
Hey, me and Justin are still just trying to crack our armor. Well, guys, be careful of this late stage propaganda, because I've seen, and I'm sure many of you have seen, friends and family virtually go away because of this. If you
jobs,
don't-
jobs.
quite literally, you get fired from your job if you don't get certain medicine. And what happened to, but your body, your choice, except when it comes to certain things, because we only accept some people in some ways.
So here's the thing, right? If you're feeling down, or you're thinking that you're the only sane person left on Earth, don't worry. We've all been there. That means you're actually seeing things for what they are, I would argue. And so sooner or later, we are going to get through this. We have to get through this. You know, as a country, as a species, as a race. You know, sooner or later we have to get through this. And the antidote, or the cure for this, is just simply being able to speak the truth. Now, maybe don't be a dick when you speak the truth, but always speak the truth, and understand if that hurts someone's feelings, or if that forces a constraint onto their delusions or otherwise deluded self-image, then, you know, well, I think the truth needs to prevail. I'm not saying, you know, go around and bash people with it. And there's always a way to do it gracefully. But nonetheless, I do not speak a lie in lieu of the truth. That does no one any favors.
Well, without further ado, guys, this is the essence of late stage propaganda. Are we already there? It seems like the propaganda has ramped up from being subtle to very, very extreme over the past few years, and I think it will extremiate much further.
Just a quick thank you to the Anon who wrote this. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. We'll see you on the next one.